Hi guys, welcome to Bigmouth podcast. I'm Yang, and today I'm with Yangyang.
Hi everyone, I'm Yangyang.
Today we're going to be discussing the topic of mortality and fear of death. So I guess we should just start off with the question of, are you scared of death?
I mean, scared as in like, am I afraid death is gonna be painful or scared? I think it's scared. I'm scared in the sense that it's like the knowledge that one day I'm not gonna wake up. And then, if there's like more things that I wanted to do, I wouldn't be able to do them.
Yeah, because I think like when you ask people if they're scared of death, some people are scared of like the process of dying, like the pain factor. But I think for me personally, um, the thing I'm scared of the most is what happens after death. Like, I don't want to be alone in like nothingness. Like that just sounds terrifying to me. Um, and I guess what I'm really scared of is like how uncertain it all is. Like we don't know anything about what happens after death, and there's so many different theories. And yeah,
I don't think like the, quote unquote afterlife really scares me because to me, I'm just like, you just die. You become food for worms, like as they say in Shakespeare. But I think it's like when you're facing death, it's not the pain, but it's the like if there's like regrets of like, I didn't use my time wisely. So there were all these XYZ things that I didn't get to fulfill or achieve in my limited time here.
yeah. And I think another part of fear of death is not just being scared of your own death. It's more of like fear of the death of your loved ones or the people around you. Because I know that's the biggest part for me. Because okay, I guess I'm going to my story now. Because my mom, I think I told you this before, she gave birth to me when she was 40, which is like quite old. And so when I was younger, maybe like sixth grade, I used to have this huge fear of my parents dying and me being alone in this like big world. And so I've always had this fear of like everyone that I love dies, and I'll regret not spending more time with them, or like I'll regret arguing with them, stuff like that. Especially with my older grandparents and stuff. And
Yes, you will when that time comes.
yeah.
You will regret it.
Also, another thing that I've been thinking about is I've never had pets, but my parents, when they were younger, they had a lot of pets, especially my dad, because he lived in like a big house with a huge yard. And so the other day, my dad was like, yeah, we have to apologize to you because while you're living under our roof, you're never going to have a pet. Because he was like, I'm too scared. After having so many pets, like I've experienced losing them too much. Like I can't handle another pet. And my mom feels the same way, which is why I've never had a pet before. And yeah.
Yeah, um, I think that so I grew up with my grandparents, like my Yangyang and I. Um, because my parents immigrated to the U.S. first, and they were doing like their master's and PhD in the U.S. So I was in China with my grandparents. But then, after my parents graduated and found jobs in the U.S., then they could apply for us to go to the U.S. Um, and they, of course, also applied for my grandparents to go with us. But, like getting a visa to the U.S. is very difficult. So I have a twin sister. My twin sister and me were able to go, but my grandparents, I think they applied like two or three times over the course of like several years, and their application was always rejected. So, yeah, I remember my grandma passed away it was like during my first few months, like when I first started working full time.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, I was really upset because I didn't even, like, before I started working, I didn't even go back to China to like see her.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I definitely had that regret of like, why didn't I like, take the time to visit China one more time when I had time? Um, so, yeah, I think that's always going to be there. And I think for me, it was hard because I feel like I wasn't, I was probably just like she had to endure me as a little brat.
Mm-hmm.
She raised me until I was 8, but then I never got to, and then we were like sort of ripped away from her.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so um, there's like, you just have to come to terms with it and sort of just hope that you did the best that you could in your given circumstances.
Yeah, I feel like that pressure is kind of inevitable because, like, luckily for me, all my grandparents are still here,
Mm-hmm.
even though they're like pretty old.
Mm-hmm.
But I always feel this constant nagging in my head whenever, for example, when I fight with my mom, like after a while I'll be like, well, what if she like dies tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll regret arguing with her today. But then again, arguing is you can't avoid it. So there's always this like kind of pressure on me, like, do I really want to act like this right now?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that something could happen like any minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think in that way, death is good because
Mm-hmm.
it reminds us of, like what things are important and what we should value. Because we know nothing is forever.
Mm-hmm. And um, I feel like along with fear of death also comes with like the knowledge of that life is like really short and limited, and this you being this age and these experiences are also limited.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I think about that, I think about how much of my life I've already lived and what I've done
Mm-hmm.
with these years. For example, I just turned 16 like yesterday.
Happy
And
belated.
thank you. And I was thinking like, if I died like tomorrow, would I be happy with what I've done with my 16 years of life?
Would you?
And I don't know how to answer that question because I feel like I'm so young. There's so many like supposedly like big accomplishments that I'm supposed to have in the future. I feel like I haven't even gotten to begin what belongs to like me, like my real life yet.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm so young, too young to die.
Yeah,
I mean, you're like 15 years older than me. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm 14 years old.
Okay.
um, Honestly, I think you're probably more. I don't know. To have these sort of thoughts is pretty mature. I don't know if I thought so much about death when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, it's in the back of everyone's mind, but I think death was very abstract for me until I started losing the people that I love.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I remember when I was really young, like the first funeral I went to was for like my great grandmother or great grandfather or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like just a very vague concept to me of like, oh, what happens to them? They're not sitting in the living room anymore. Um, but I guess I think losing your parents is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And I think that when my mom passed away 6 years ago, that's when like it might sound very cheesy, but I think if you're close to your parents, it's like sort of an instantaneous thing where you feel like, oh, I can't just, go to my parents to comfort me anymore. like now I really have to be an adult
Hmm.
and take care of myself.
I think what got me to think about it, because like I said, I haven't really lost any of my really close loved ones. But what really got me thinking about it is my grandpa on my dad's side. He has like a lot of health issues, and I think maybe like when I was really really young, the doctor said that he could only live for maybe like one more year or a few months. I mean, but he's still alive now, and but there were so many close calls, and so many times where my dad really wanted to um, my dad and his and my aunt really wanted to convince him to stop taking those pills that had really bad side effects. And I remember,
Was this chemotherapy?
yeah, he had some kind of cancer, I forgot, but like I think he finished chemo. He was just taking these pills for other stuff, but they had really bad side effects. Like they affected his feet, so he couldn't really walk properly without it hurting. My dad and his sister wanted my grandpa to live happily and like away from these bad side effects. But telling him to stop taking those pills would be like telling him to basically like give up trying to live. So I think witnessing that kind of stress from the adults in my life kind of got me thinking about death earlier than maybe some of my peers. So I guess another question that plagues a lot of us is, what do you believe happens after death? Because so like basically everyone has a different belief of what they think happens after death. And I know for me, I was raised religious. My mom is like super 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 Christian, so I was brought up in church. So I've always had this belief that there is some type of afterlife after life, like heaven or hell. But in recent years, after questioning my like questioning religion, I think I've come to terms that now I believe that um, I think there's an afterlife, but I don't believe in the Christian concept of like heaven or hell and like the judgment kind of thing.
So it's interesting. So when I first moved to the US, my parents wanted me and my sister to like decide for ourselves whether we wanted to be religious or not. And there were two churches on the street that we lived. So there was a Catholic church and a Protestant church. And they were like, you guys can go to both of them and decide for yourselves. So we went to both of these churches, and like especially for the Catholic Church. Yeah, I was like, this is kind of strange. And I, yeah, so I've read all the sort of like religious, writings just to, try to evaluate what I believed in. But I don't know, like the conclusion that I sort of reached that was that all religion is just created by men to subjugate women, like including Buddhism, which a lot of people are like, oh, Buddhism is like, it's a what Eastern religion is good, and I'm like, well, I find it ridiculous that they teach monks that even if a woman's drowning in a river and going to die, they can't save her because monks aren't allowed to touch women. So I was like, anything that would go to such extremes and have like no sort of, relativity based on the situation is not something that I can really subscribe to. So I think sort of based on that, all these religious writing that I feel very like turned off by religion, that I don't really buy into the religious belief of afterlife. And so I guess just scientifically, what most scientists they haven't been able to prove an afterlife. And yeah, so I guess I would like to believe there's an afterlife, but I just can't. Um, yeah, I think what happens is just you die. Either you become ashes if you get cremated, or you get buried in soil and you just decompose.
Yeah, it's like just so hard to wrap my mind around um our souls just like disappearing in thin air after we die. As I was saying, there's just so many theories. Like some people believe in reincarnation, where you get born into like another body, or like some people believe that souls just going to go into nothingness, like just float around for eternity, and then yeah, like the after world, afterlife. Um, and what also gets me thinking about this is, you know how there's like a lot of movies
Mm-hmm.
and stories online about near death experiences where people go to heaven or people will die and they come back to life and they tell everyone what they see. Like I've watched a lot of those movies and um, it really like messes with you because especially if you don't believe in that kind of stuff or
Mm-hmm.
even if you do believe in that kind of stuff, it seems so like when nobody knows if that's actually true.
Mm, yeah. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Like when I watch those movies, I think I sort of just see it like how I see like Harry
Fiction.
Potter movies,
Yeah,
or like I'm just like, oh, that was a nice story.
yeah. Yeah. Wait, I remember you telling me you had a near death experience.
Ah, yes. So I have been in a few car accidents, and for one of them, it was I was not driving. I was in the passenger side, and my friend was driving, um, and we were like moving her stuff into storage because we had just finished freshman year in college. Um, and then I was like giving her directions, and she like missed the exit ramp from the highway, and she decides she's gonna do a freaking U-turn on the highway. So I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die because, like, on the highway, like, I'm on the passenger side, so if any incoming car, like, oncoming car was gonna hit, it was gonna hit me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I really saw, like, flashes of my life, my 18 years of life up, up to that point. But yeah, in terms of like, is this some sort of sign that, death is like this sort of ritual and then the next thing happens? I was like, probably not. It's just probably some sort of hormones that your body releases. Um, just like how, because I think as humans, we often relive moments from our life, whether it's like, oh, this really happy moment, and because, they say humans suffer because we rarely live in the present. We're always living in the future or in the past. And so I think that that's just some sort of hormone that makes you relive. You think, oh no, I'm gonna die, and then this some hormone gets released, and you start like reliving the happiest moments of your life.
Oh, and probably another explanation is probably like some people have these near death experiences where they see heaven.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like when you die, you have this kind of hallucination and for example, if you're a Christian, you believe in heaven, so you have this hallucination about you going to heaven. That's probably what happens.
Oh, well, I just had like, I saw moments from my life.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that happens as well. Yeah. Cause um when I used to like do church stuff, I had this youth pastor and she told us a story about so she had heart problems and one time when she was pregnant, her heart just stopped because she was on this like thing that supports your heart and keeps it beating and I think it was like expiring and then one day there was some problem, I forgot the details, but her heart just stopped and then she kind of like passed out. I mean technically she died because her heart stopped anyway. She she did that and then she said that her soul, she was just like when she looked up, her soul was just like she was just an entity, like her body was gone, and then she could feel herself like I guess in this space, and then she was shooting upwards toward this light. I guess that was heaven, and she was feeling this like joy But I think she said that when she got to the top, like where heaven is, she heard God say like, "Oh, it's not your time yet," and then she came back to life in the ER.
Wow.
Yeah, and she told me that when I was like in sixth grade, and I think about it a lot.
So from what you said about that, that reminds me of a fear that I have. I'm just like, I'm always very rationally thinking like, how can the heart muscle like never rest?
Hmm.
Like that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
Like shouldn't we just like turn it off and just let it rest for a minute? Because I'm like, there's no other muscle in our body, right? That's like always going.
yeah.
Most like liver or oh, I guess our lungs are always working too,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so
But like,
that
yeah.
that like is sort of unfathomable to me, and I often worry about people's hearts,
Yeah.
including my own. I'm like,
I'm
what
like,
if
are
it
you
just gets
tired?
yeah, what if it just gets too tired and I just die?
Yeah. I think another part of fear of death is what? Oh, it's like it's so easy to die. Like one wrong move and you could be dead. Like on the street, you could just be doing something else and a car zooms by and it's over. Like it's when you think about it, it's literally so easy to die. And that's like kind of terrifying. So I prefer not to think about that. But um yeah, do you agree?
Yeah, so I think I've done some things to try to mitigate these like freak accidents from happening. Like I left the US because not that when I was living in the US that I constantly thought about getting killed by a stray bullet or something.
Hmm.
But now that I'm not in the US, I'm like, wow.
You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, like that's not even part of the equation. Um, and yeah, I think, yeah, I was like reading some, where did I hear this? Of some guy who was like
Sorry.
engaged, and he and his fiance, I think, were on the beach somewhere in Miami, and some stray bullet traveled from like really far, hit him and killed him. Because like it was like a nice area in Miami, like it was a nice beach, and it was just like some stray bullet and just like killed him.
Jesus Christ.
So I'm just like, oh, I'm so glad I don't live in a country anymore where guns are legal for everyone.
Yeah, but like about that, it's like the thing about how so many deaths are like avoidable or preventable. And I was thinking about that uh like drunk driving deaths are so avoidable and so stupid. And even like COVID deaths could be avoidable. Like all those like deaths in America, they could be avoidable if people just listened. Um
Yeah, I agree. So I always try to do what I can to sort of mitigate these avoidable deaths. Like I don't even like being in cars that much because
mhm.
I've been in so many car accidents that I'm
Yeah.
like, there's a subway, I'm taking the subway
Yeah.
because the subway is not going to crash into another subway.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Actually, let's not jinx it. The last thing is, do you want to live a long life? Do you want to live a long life?
Um, yes. I think that there's a lot of things that I want to do, but maybe an interesting question um, that I've heard some people pose just as like a hypothetical. Would you, if let's say you could live to the age of like 90 or 100,
Mm-hmm.
would you rather that you were able to maintain like the body of a 30-year-old with like no, physical ailments or like health issues and with the mind of a 100-year-old? Or would you rather like be near death in your body of like a 100-year-old, but your mind is still as sharp as 30-year-old?
The second one.
Oh, okay.
Well, oh no, I mean, but you're a. Let me think about it. So you're 100,
Yeah,
but
90 or 100, you're near death.
and your brain is slow.
Yeah, like a typical 100-year-old brain.
But
and
your body is 30.
Yeah.
And the second one is your body is 100,
Yeah.
but your brain is 30.
Yeah.
I would choose the first one.
Right, so that you have a healthy body, right?
Yeah.
So...
But then you'll never die. Like, you won't die for, like, another few years.
Well, your brain can die.
Yeah.
You just become a vegetable.
Which one would you choose?
Probably the first one also. I think maybe that's part of our fear of growing old and dying is more like on the physical side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe because I'm just like, I think even once I get to 100, my brain should be okay. It won't be as fast as it is now, but I shouldn't be like terrible.
Because I wouldn't want to be like very like my brain very sharp, like very smart. Like I'm thinking about things and all the things I want to do, and my body hindering me from being able to do those things. I'd rather be like old, satisfied, and like, but my body's not hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so to extend this sort of hypothetical metaphor, would you want to live forever if that was a possibility?
Hell no. Like everyone around you is dying and you're just alive forever and you're witnessing all these bad things happen. Yeah, no. I would just like I think yeah. I think cuz that would be like living multiple lifetimes except you're just getting older and older.
Yes, or getting old really, really slowly.
Yeah. No, cuz you would have to witness so many people die. Unless everyone is living that pace. But then that would just be like now. But no, I would not want to be immortal. Even if I could always have a body of like a 20-year-old. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
would you?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't think it would be too bad.
Mm-hmm. You could just keep making friends.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be painful to like lose people that you love, of course, but to be able to live forever, of course, the assumption is like everything functions, right? Your body really functions, your physical and mental health. Like, if you can maintain that, I think it'd be really cool just to see and to have gained so much wisdom and experience.
But also, I think like life, you know how there's different stages of life, like when you're middle age and then you become a parent, whatever. I think if you were to always stay at one age, you would never be able to move past that stage of life. And then I think it would get pretty tiring. Because, for example, if you stay at the age of 30, you're just always going to be working. You're never going to like move on to the stage where you're like a grandparent and then experience that, stuff like that.
I guess you would, right? If everyone else is still growing old.
No, but then you're still 30 while
Yeah.
everyone else is old.
Yeah, so you'd just be a really young grandparent.
Okay, I guess. And then your grandkids will be older than you.
And then they're gonna die. Yeah.
I mean, but back to the question of like, do you want to live a long life? I think after I get to like a certain age, I'll just be done. Like when you get to that age where your life consists of like your grandkids coming over and running around you, that's just your whole entire life. I think after a few years of that, I'll be pretty.
But see, that's why I think that what we think will get boring or whatever of like immortality is based on the assumption or what we know about life so far is that we get old, we don't have the energy to do stuff for ourselves anymore, and it's just like, oh, look at these young people running around me. But I'm saying like immortality where you still get all your like peak performance. I don't think immortality in that, if it's like that, would be bad. Yeah. So yes, living a long life, sure, where you're like naturally aging, yeah, probably after I reach 100, I will be very happy. Like, oh, I hit the 3-number mark.
Yeah.
But
like also with being immortal, like as each generation that you experience dies, I feel like why I wouldn't want that is going back to like my fear of being alone. 'Cause I feel like this also ties in with the fear of like nothingness after death. Because seriously, it sounds terrifying to me. You're just one soul, and it's just a bunch of empty space around you. That's why like being an astronaut, that is scary as hell. Like imagine if you just get lost and you're just floating around.
Sorry, no, no.
Hello.
Hello.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if it was like if you're guaranteed to be, you're relegated to be alone into perpetuity, yes, that would be scary for me. But just being alone, like for an X period of time, I think is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think okay, not immortal, but if you let me live a longer life, like longer than normal, while staying at the same age, I would do that. But you have to let me know when I'm dying. Like I don't want to do this forever, but I'll do it for longer.
But nobody knows when they're dying.
Yeah, but everyone has like a general idea. Like nobody's gonna live until they're like 200. Like we all know we're
True.
gonna die around the same age mark.
Yeah. Or younger.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Are there irrational fears that you have
About
around
death?
Yeah.
Do you?
I mean, I still think the idea of like dying in a crashing airplane is scarier than like most other vehicles, even though that's like extremely irrational, and airplanes statistically are way safer than any other mode of transportation. And I like to travel and all that, but yeah, I still am like, oh crap, this
Constantly
might
thinking
be
about it.
it. So like, yeah, whenever I go on an airplane, I
Same.
always like count how many rows of seats I am from the nearest exit.
Yeah, whenever I'm on an airplane, when it's taking off, when it's like zoom in, I'll always be like, huh, things could go very wrong right now. This could be my last time looking out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, I was listening to this podcast and they said that usually people don't die in a crash. People die because they don't get out of the airplane fast enough. So
That's
that's
very
the way to
comforting.
survive
Yeah.
an airplane crash is always to know exactly where your seat is in relation to the nearest exit. So if it does crash, you can get out.
Okay, I guess going back to my original point, my fear of death is just fear of the death of people around me because death is so close to us. Like it could be just around the corner, and like car accidents are just so kind of common. And oh, like a few months ago, this celebrity he died in his own house because he slipped in the shower and hit his head, and he lives alone, so he just like I think he just bled out and died. Like that is terrifying because that's so you can't avoid that. And there's also nothing you can do to like help that person, especially if like for example, like when I don't for example, I'm not talking to my friends right now. What if they're going through something and I just don't know, and the next second they're like, like that's my fear of death, and not like I'm scared of how much it will hurt when I die.
Yeah, I think, yeah, maybe also the fear of death is that it's unpredictable and it's completely out of our control. If you could choose, like if it's possible to know exactly how and when you would die, would you choose to know that? Or would you prefer to not?
No, because that would be so much pressure. Like I would want to I would like when the time is getting closer, I'll be like, have I done everything I've wanted to do? Like, oh, maybe I want to do that. Oh shit, I don't have enough time. And then I'll like have to, yeah, there's just gonna be like so much pressure. And then I would want to see like everyone I know like one last time. And, well, what about you?
I think I would want to know.
So
I
that you
think
can do everything you want.
To me, like the most scary thing about death is not knowing, having it being completely outside of my control. And I think I'm someone who likes to have control over everything that I can control.
But then what if today you could find out and it told you that you were gonna die like tomorrow?
Well, then I know I better make the most of my last 24 hours.
Yeah. But I think if I knew when other people, if other people told me when they were gonna die, that would be, I don't think I would want to know that, because then I would always have this pressure of like, I don't know, like being nice to them. Or like, I would, I don't know how to explain this. Like, I just wouldn't want to know. Because I would want to save them. For example, if they were dying from like not natural death, I would not want to know, because then I would feel guilty for knowing but not being able to prevent them from dying in that moment.
Well, let's just say it's just in like you can't change it if it's like so I remember the first time I ever cried watching a movie was this Japanese movie, and the premise of it was like some sort of dystopian future where the government, in order to control the population, puts a chip into everyone's like arm as soon as the baby's born, and for like 10% of the population or something, the chip will kill you the day you turn 25.
Mm-hmm.
And so the movie is centers around 5 people who find out on their last day of their 24th birth, like 24th year, that the next day that they're going to die. So it shows like the last 24 hours of their life. So, so yeah, like I said, I think for me, like the knowledge that I will die sometime is a motivator for me to like do more of my life so that I don't have any regrets on my deathbed. But I think if I like knew exactly when I would die, it would help me plan even better.
Yeah. That reminds me, fear of death is so closely related to fear of like regretting things. Cause like because death reminds you that life is like so short, and there's only so many things you can do, and it totally depends on what you choose to do with your time. And because I'm like halfway done with high school, and a lot of people say that like high school, I mean, you only experience it once, and there's so many things you learn in high school. It's such like, it's a pretty important part of your life, right? And I've always had this like dilemma between like, do I want to study super hard and spend all my time studying and be an honor student and go to a really good college, or do I want to have fun, go crazy, have that kind of high school life? And
choose the former, always. College is when you can have fun.
Good advice. But like, yeah, it's like, yeah, fear of regret and like always having to make choices and thinking about like, will I regret making this choice over that choice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but do you think that if you knew exactly when you were to die, then you can better make decisions and plans based on like working backwards?
I think if you knew when you were gonna die, you can do riskier things. Like, I know some people are scared of skydiving because they're like, what if I die? I'm too young to die. Like, if you knew when you were gonna die, you can just go skydive and you know you won't die.
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
I just meant like when you
Yeah,
knew
yeah,
when you
yeah.
could die, like if everything was like normal, but if you injected like a new variable into the equation of like doing an activity that normally you would never have done, then maybe you'll die earlier than predicted. Yeah. But I don't know. I guess I'm too much of a planner.
Yeah.
So
Actually, now that I think about it, fear of death is probably like good in some cases because if you're really scared of death, you're gonna be safer. You're gonna make like
No, I don't think being safer is good. I think we should take risks because I think the people who have the most regrets are the people
oh
who
yeah.
never took a risk and always followed what they were quote unquote supposed to do.
But there's also people that make stupid decisions and die.
I think that you should always take calculated risks. You
Mhm.
shouldn't just take stupid risks that you never thought through.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think, at least for me, it's very important to me to take risks because I think you're always going to regret more not doing something rather than having done something.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true.
Because even if the thing that you did hurt you, as long as you didn't die, you can learn from the experience.
Mhm. I don't know what else to say. Should we end it?
Sure.
All right. Well, thanks Yangyang for being on my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You'll probably be back because there's a lot more topics to do and I can't find people to do with me. But anyway.
That's not very flat.
No. Because they're good topics. Anyway, thanks for listening and go look at my channel for more interesting topics. Okay, bye.
Bye.